I'll be the meeting facilitator tonight. I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's about 5:30. We're going to go ahead and start this more formal public hearing for the draft environmental impact statement, or EIS. You'll hear that acronym quite a bit tonight. So it's the EIS for authorizing changes to the Falcon Launch Program at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Again, thank you for joining us. Feel free to take your seats if you'd like. There might be some more people wandering in shortly. I'd like to ask you to turn your cell phones off if you don't mind, or put them on vibrate. That would be really helpful. Thank you. Before I get started, I just want to make sure that you are aware that outside this door, the door you just came in, and then to the right, past the sign-in table are the restrooms, should you need those. And then if there is any emergency, we have the exit doors here and over here. My flight attendant speech is now done. Okay, so I did want to make sure that you're all aware that this presentation and the formal oral comment session is being recorded by Jackie, our court reporter over here. And then the transcripts of the public comment portion of each of the four hearings we're having will be included in the final EIS. So this is the first of 4 public hearings. We have 3 that are in person and 1 virtual public hearing. And all the same information that you'll see in the presentation will be shared at all 4 meetings. And if you want more information, or there's no need to take pictures of the presentation or the posters, that's all available on the project website. Okay, I'd like to make some introductions. So we have some project representatives that are here first. Colonel, U.S. Space Force Colonel Dorian Hatcher here. He's from Space Launch Delta 30. He's the Deputy Commander for Operations at Vandenberg Space Force Base, and he represents the United States Space Force. Next, we have Mr. Dale Clark, here in the front. He is a subject matter expert on the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. That's another common acronym that you'll hear. And then Hillary Rummel. She might still be she's still in the open house, but she is a NEPA planner, and both Dale and Hillary are from the NEPA division at the Air Force Civil Engineer Center. I'd also like to introduce our hearing officer, Judge Bowman. She is a military judge and is serving as the hearing officer to ensure we have a fair and orderly comment session. So at this time, I'll turn it over. Got microphones all over the place here. Might need your help here with this one. Not wanting to stand there. With the touch. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for attending this public hearing tonight for the authorizing changes to the Falcon Launch Program at Vandenberg Space Force Base Environmental Impact Statement, which you will hear referred to as the Falcon Launch Program, EIS, or just EIS. I am Judge Tiny Bowman, a military trial judge for the United States Air Force, and I will be your hearing officer tonight. My role tonight is to ensure that we have a fair, orderly, and impartial hearing where you have an opportunity to make comments on the proposal. I do not work for anyone at the Air Force Civil Engineer Center, the Federal Aviation Administration, United States Coast Guard, or Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm not involved in any way with the development of this draft EIS or the decision to be made regarding the Falcon Launch Program. Additionally, I do not act as a legal advisor to the representatives working on this proposal. It is important that you understand that I will be serving as an impartial moderator for this hearing. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Colonel Hatcher for opening remarks.
Okay, good evening, and welcome to the public hearing for the draft environmental impact statement prepared by the Department of the Air Force for proposed expansion of the Falcon Launch Program at Vandenberg Space Force Base. My name is Colonel Dorian Hatcher, and I serve as the Deputy Commander for Operations at Space Launch Delta 30. In this role, I oversee launch operations and environmental compliance for space launch activities at Vandenberg Space Force Base, including the importance of this project. I would like to personally thank you for joining us this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to provide the public and other stakeholders with an opportunity to review and comment on the draft EIS. Your input is a critical part of the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, process, ensuring that we fully consider the environmental, cultural, and community impacts of the proposed expansion. This meeting is one of 4 public hearings the Department of the Air Force is conducting to gather feedback on the draft EIS. We are committed to transparency and collaboration, and we value the perspectives of the community, its members, elected officials, organizations, and other stakeholders. Tonight's session will include an informal presentation about the project, followed by a formal public comment period where you will have the opportunity to share your thoughts and concerns. Your participation is essential to this process, and we encourage you to provide substantive comments that will help us refine the analysis and strengthen the final EIS. Whether you are here to express concerns or simply learn more about the project, we appreciate your engagement and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for being here, and we hope this evening's discussion will be informative, productive. So let's begin.
Thank you, Colonel. This hearing is held in accordance with the provisions of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and regulations published by the Air Force. The Department of the Air Force is holding this public hearing for the draft EIS and appreciates your participation. The Air Force is here tonight to present information on the potential environmental impacts of the proposed Falcon Launch Program and to receive your comments on the draft EIS. Tonight's hearing is one of several opportunities for the public to provide input through the commenting session. It is an opportunity for you to express your views and concerns about the alternatives studied in the draft EIS, the adequacy of the environmental impact analysis, and any issues related to the NEPA process. This hearing is not a debate or a vote on the draft EIS, nor is it a question and answer session. If you have questions, we encourage you to return to the open house poster station for discussion with the team members. If you would like to make an oral comment during tonight's hearing, we just ask that you fill out one of these speaker request cards at the table right outside the door there. Speakers will be called in the order they submit their card. Others not wishing to submit an oral comment tonight are encouraged to provide their comments in writing, either via the project website or by mail or here tonight. We have a comment table set up in the other room. Please know that you can ask clarifying questions as part of your verbal comment or by submitting them in writing to the addresses specified on the fact sheet that you received. On the back side are the ways that you can submit your comments. The Department of the Air Force will respond to all substantive comments and questions in writing in the final environmental impact statement. So again, supporting this hearing today are representatives from the Air Force Civil Engineer Center, the Federal Aviation Administration, and Vandenberg Space Force Base. Mantech International is supporting the Department of the Air Force as the contractor performing the environmental impact analysis, as well as technical and facilitation support for tonight's hearing. And again, finally, we have Jackie, our court reporter here, that will be recording all of the testimony tonight. Okay, I think that's all for the welcome and introductions. We'll go ahead and transition to the presentation. That should take about 30 minutes. The presentation provides details on the proposed action and alternatives. It gives an overview of the NEPA process and a summary of the potential environmental consequences of the proposal. After the presentation, we'll take a brief 10-minute break, and then upon returning from the break, we'll start the verbal comment session. Your comments will become part of the official record and included in the final EIS. If you have items of concern about the analysis and the draft EIS that you would like to bring to the Air Force's attention, please do so during this hearing or in writing. Comments about other unrelated issues will not assist in the decision-making process. Okay, we're now ready to begin the recorded portion of the presentation. It's approximately 30 minutes, and then we'll take that break and come back for the verbal comment session. Thank you.
Welcome to the public hearing for the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, for authorizing changes to the Falcon Launch Program at Vandenberg Space Force Base. The Department of the Air Force is the lead federal agency preparing the EIS and is hosting this public hearing to provide information related to the proposed action, its purpose and need, the environmental analysis, the National Environmental Policy Act process, and public involvement opportunities. An EIS is a detailed public document providing an assessment of the potential effects a federal action may have on human, natural, and cultural environments. An EIS may be required by the National Environmental Policy Act, a U.S. federal law that directs federal agencies to examine the individual and cumulative or additive environmental effects of the agency's proposed activities. Public involvement is a fundamental aspect of the National Environmental Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. The Department of the Air Force welcomes and appreciates the public's participation. Please subscribe to the website if you would like to receive future project notifications. The Department of the Air Force released the draft EIS for public review and comment on May 23, 2025. We encourage you to submit comments via the project website, at the public hearings, or via postal mail through July 7, 2025, which concludes the 45-day public review and comment period. We will go through these commenting options in more detail on a later slide. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for the official record. The Department of the Air Force prepared a draft EIS to analyze the potential environmental effects associated with 1. The Department of the Air Force's authorization of the redevelopment of Space Launch Complex 6, or SLC-6, to support Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy operations, including launch and landing at Vandenberg Space Force Base, California. 2. The Department of the Air Force's authorization of an increase in Falcon 9 launches and landings at Vandenberg and downrange landings in the Pacific Ocean. The increase in launches and landings would also mean an increase in first stage booster landings at Vandenberg. And 3. The Federal Aviation Administration's licensing Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, or SpaceX, for Falcon operations at Vandenberg and approval of related airspace closures. The Department of the Air Force will consider the potential impacts the proposed action and alternatives may have on the environment before a decision is made. The purpose of the proposed action is to increase the space launch mission capability of the United States Department of Defense, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, and other federal and commercial customers, and enhance the resilience and capacity of the nation's space launch infrastructure while promoting a robust and competitive national space industry. As directed by U.S. policy, the United States seeks to provide greater launch and landing capabilities and infrastructure to support national security objectives, including deploying satellites and other space assets that enable intelligence, reconnaissance, and global security operations. The United States aims to promote a hybrid space architecture that diversifies access to space, reduces dependency on singular systems, and ensures rapid reconstitution capabilities. The proposed action is needed to meet current and near-term United States government space launch requirements from the Department of Defense Space Launch Range that supports launches centered at Vandenberg, called the Western Range, specifically for medium and heavy lift launches to polar, geostationary, and other orbits less reliably available elsewhere without compromising current launch capabilities. The proposed action is also needed to expand launch capacity by returning heavy lift launch capability to the Western Range. Finally, The proposed action is needed to fulfill, in part, 10 U.S. Code Section 2276A, Commercial Space Launch Cooperation, authorizing the Secretary of Defense to maximize the use of the capacity of the space transportation infrastructure of the Department of Defense by the private sector in the United States, maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of the space transportation infrastructure of the Department of Defense, reduce the cost of services provided by the Department of Defense related to space transportation infrastructure at launch support facilities and space recovery facilities, encourage commercial space activities by enabling investment by covered entities in the space transportation infrastructure of the Department of Defense, and foster cooperation between the Department of Defense and covered entities. Covered entity means a non-federal entity that is organized under the laws of the United States or of any jurisdiction within the United States and is engaged in commercial space activities. This map shows the regional location of Vandenberg Space Force Base, including the boundary line of the base and the locations of Space Launch Complex 4, or SLC-4, and SLC-6 in the southern portion of Vandenberg. The city of Lompoc is shown on the map and is the closest off-base community to these launch complexes. SLC-4 currently hosts Falcon 9 launch and landing operations. SLC-6 is proposed for redevelopment to support Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch and landing operations. It is important to note that SLC-6 has been used for medium and heavy launches in the past. This slide provides a brief overview of the two vehicles proposed to be used in the proposed action. The first vehicle is the Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 is 229 feet tall and equipped with 9 Merlin engines powered by liquid oxygen and rocket propellant 1. First stage boosters are reusable and expected to land at SLC-4 or SLC-6 or downrange in the ocean recovery area on a drone ship or barge. The next vehicle is the Falcon Heavy. The Falcon Heavy is a heavy lift vehicle, also approximately 229 feet tall and powered by the same Merlin engines as Falcon 9. The center core and 2 side boosters are essentially the same design as a Falcon 9 first stage booster. Falcon Heavy side boosters would return to land at new dual landing zones at SLC-6 or downrange on a drone ship. The core booster would land on a drone ship or could be expended. For both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, mission objectives may occasionally require expending the first stage boosters within the recovery area in the Pacific Ocean. The Department of the Air Force is the lead agency for this EIS. The Federal Aviation Administration and United States Coast Guard are cooperating agencies. The Federal Aviation Administration is a cooperating agency because the scope of the proposed action includes the Federal Aviation Administration's licensing SpaceX for increased Falcon operations at Vandenberg and approving related airspace closures. The U.S. Coast Guard is a cooperating agency because of its role in maritime safety and regulatory authority over waters subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. In the EIS, the Department of the Air Force analyzed the potential environmental effects associated with the proposed action, Alternative 1, and a no-action alternative. Under the proposed action, the Department of the Air Force would increase the annual Falcon launch cadence at Vandenberg Space Force Base through launch and landing operations at SLC-4 and SLC-6, including the modification of SLC-6 for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch vehicles to support future U.S. government and commercial launch service needs. The overall launch cadence would increase from 50 Falcon 9 launches per year at SLC-4 to 100 launches per year for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy at both space launch complexes combined. Under the proposed action, Falcon Heavy, which has not launched from Vandenberg in the past, would launch and land up to 5 times per year from and at SLC-6. Missions including first stage booster landings at Vandenberg would increase from the up to 12 per year currently at SLC-4 to up to 24 per year, with the addition of up to 12 landings per year at SLC-6. The existing horizontal integration facility located north of SLC-6 would be modified into a hangar for use by SpaceX. No modification of SLC-4 infrastructure is proposed. The Federal Aviation Administration would license SpaceX operations and approve related airspace closures. SLC-6 would need to be modified to support Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches and landings. This figure shows the existing infrastructure and proposed conceptual site plan for SLC-6. The proposed modification would involve demolition of 4 existing structures, including the Mobile Service Tower, Mobile Assembly Shelter, Fixed Umbilical Tower, and Launch Crown, and construction of features including commodity storage tanks, a vehicle erector, water tower, and a transport road with a rail system extending from the existing horizontal integration facility to the launch pad. The existing flame trench would be retained and converted to a unidirectional water-cooled flame diverter, and a deluge acoustic suppression system would be installed. Dual landing pads would also be constructed to the south of SLC-6. Under Alternative 1, the Department of the Air Force would implement the proposed action, but rather than modifying the existing horizontal integration facility, the Department of the Air Force would authorize SpaceX to construct a new hangar south of the horizontal integration facility and north of SLC-6 to support Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy integration and processing. As shown in the figure, a road and rail system would be constructed from the new hangar to the launch pad, and the existing horizontal integration facility would remain. Under the no action alternative, the Department of the Air Force would not authorize any Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy launches or landing operations at or modifications to SLC-6, nor would the Department of the Air Force authorize additional Falcon 9 launches from SLC-4. The Federal Aviation Administration would not license Falcon operations at SLC-6 or an increase in Falcon 9 launches at SLC-4. Falcon 9 launches and landings would continue at SLC-4 as currently authorized. The Department of the Air Force evaluated the direct, indirect, and cumulative effects the proposed action may have on the human, natural, and cultural environments. Environmental resource areas analyzed in detail in the EIS include air quality, noise, terrestrial and freshwater biological resources, marine biological resources, water resources, cultural resources, coastal resources, Department of Transportation Section 4F resources, utilities, socioeconomics, transportation, human health and safety, hazardous materials and waste management, solid waste management, and geology and soil. The figure shows the recovery area in the Pacific Ocean, where up to 100 booster landings per year could occur downrange on a drone ship. Please note that this presentation focuses on providing an overview of the potential effects associated with the primary issues of concern raised during the public scoping process, including noise, biological resources, socioeconomics, and air quality. For more information about other resource areas, please refer to the project fact sheet or the draft EIS, which are available on the project website. The first resource area we will review is noise. Construction and demolition would occur only at SLC-6. Noise from these activities could extend off base on a few occasions. With the increased launch cadence, the increased instances of ascent noise and sonic booms, may increase human annoyance in affected communities, but are projected to remain within community noise thresholds for areas outside of Vandenberg. To alert communities of potential sonic booms, Space Launch Delta 30 provides notification prior to each launch mission through social media and an opt-in launch alert text and email system. Structural damage is not expected. However, lightweight or brittle building elements in poor condition, such as windows or plaster, could experience damage. In the unlikely event that damage to a structure outside of the boundaries of Vandenberg were to occur because of the ongoing SpaceX launch operations, SpaceX would be responsible for resolving that damage. Property owners may contact SpaceX directly to submit claims and evidence in support of the damage claim. Information on how to make a damage claim is available on the Vandenberg website at www.vandenberg.spaceforce.mil/contact-us. The figure shown on this slide provides the sonic boom model results for Falcon 9 first stage booster landings at SLC-6. Each color line on the figure represents peak overpressure per square foot in that area. This figure, as well as others depicting noise and sonic boom modeled results for launches and landings at SLC-4 and SLC-6, can be found in the draft EIS document for further review. The next resource area we will review is biological resources. The Department of the Air Force analysis has determined that the proposed action would not result in significant effects to terrestrial, freshwater, or marine wildlife. Using the Endangered Species Act Section 7 consultations, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will determine whether the proposed action may adversely affect Endangered Species Act listed species. The service is expected to issue a biological opinion in the summer of 2025. The National Marine Fisheries Service concurred that the proposed action is not likely to adversely affect National Marine Fisheries Service Endangered Species Act listed species. For the Marine Mammal Protection Act consultation, the National Marine Fisheries Service concurred that the existing letter of authorization for Vandenberg Space Force Base rocket launches and its required monitoring and mitigations adequately addressed the proposed action. The Department of the Air Force's analysis found that with continued species monitoring and implementation of measures required in the National Marine Fisheries Service letter of authorization, and that will likely be required by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service biological opinion, the proposed action is not expected to result in a significant impact on terrestrial, freshwater, or marine biological resources. The last resource areas being summarized are socioeconomics and air quality. Regarding socioeconomics, additional employment opportunities that may result from the proposed action are expected to be positive. Some ocean areas would be closed temporarily, which could impact fishing opportunities. The demand for housing and the need for social services and support facilities are not expected to be significantly affected. For air quality, within the Los Angeles South Coast Air Basin Ozone Extreme Non-Attainment Area, emissions would exceed the General Conformity Rule de minimis thresholds for nitrogen oxides. A draft amended General Conformity Determination has been issued for public review. The net annual emissions of the proposed action would not exceed the Department of the Air Force insignificant thresholds in Santa Barbara or Ventura counties. Military personnel share the ocean and coastal areas with the community and recognize the importance of public access. The Department of the Air Force strives to minimize access restrictions and limiting the extent and duration of closures whenever possible. For public safety, some access restrictions must occur. This slide depicts the major milestones in the development of an environmental impact statement and opportunities for public interaction. The National Environmental Policy Act requires federal agencies to assess potential environmental effects of their proposed actions, disclose their findings to the public, and solicit public input on their proposals. We are currently in the draft EIS public review and comment period, which is conducted to solicit public input on the draft EIS and allow an opportunity for the public to provide comments. Following the close of the draft EIS public review and comment period, the final EIS will be prepared, addressing substantive comments received on the draft EIS and published, followed by the issuance of a record of decision identifying the selected alternative. This graphic shows the previous milestones and anticipated timeline for publishing the final EIS and issuing a record of decision. To recap the project to date, a notice of intent was published in the Federal Register on December 13, 2024. This publication initiated the start of the scoping period, which ran from December 13, 2024 to January 27, 2025. Public scoping meetings were held and public comments were solicited during this period. Following the conclusion of the scoping period, the Department of the Air Force prepared the draft EIS. The Notice of Availability for the draft EIS was published in the Federal Register on May 23, 2025, which initiated the draft EIS public review and comment period. The 45-day public review and comment period extends through July 7, 2025. Publication of the final EIS is anticipated in fall of 2025. The record of decision could be approved and signed no earlier than 30 days after the publication of the final EIS. The Department of the Air Force invites you to review the draft EIS and welcomes your substantive comments on the draft EIS. The draft EIS and its corresponding appendices are available for viewing or download on the project website, and hard copies may be viewed at the project information repositories listed on this slide. These locations are also included on the project website. There are several ways for the public to provide comments on the draft EIS. You can submit your comment electronically via the comment form on the project website, accessible at www.vsfbfalconlauncheis.com. That is www.vsfbfalconlauncheis.com. You can also mail your comment to VSFB Falcon Launch EIS C/O Mantech International Corporation, 420 Stevens Avenue, Suite 100, Solana Beach, California, 92075. Please note that your comment will help ensure that relevant issues and potential effects are analyzed. To ensure the Department of the Air Force has sufficient time to consider public input on the final EIS, please submit your comments by July 7, 2025. All comments will be made part of the public record. Thank you. This concludes the video presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a 10-minute break before receiving oral comments. Before we do, I would like to remind everyone that if you would like to make an oral comment tonight and have not already registered, please fill out a speaker request card found near the registration area and turn it in to the project representatives. We have now reached the second part of the hearing, which is the opportunity for you to provide formal oral comments. This hearing is an opportunity for you to express your views and concerns about the environmental analysis contained in the draft EIS, as well as any issues related to the NEPA process. We ask that you focus your comments on the environmental issues related to this proposal. This hearing is not a debate or a vote on the draft EIS, and it is not a question and answer session. If you express any particular concerns during the informal question and answer session, we encourage you to provide your verbal comment at this time to become part of the official record. Or you may choose to submit it on the written comment form at the comment table, the electronic comment form on the website, or through the postal service as indicated on the slides. We welcome your input on the environmental analysis presented in the draft EIS. Comments about unrelated issues can certainly be made, but they will not assist in the decision-making process for the final EIS and can take away time from others' opportunities to comment. This public hearing will be conducted as follows. Individuals who signed up to provide oral comments will be called in the order in which they turned in their speaker request card, with elected officials given the opportunity to speak first. When called upon, please clearly state your first and last name and identify any group or agency you are representing. Your name will be included in the final EIS along with your comments. However, personal home addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers will not be published in the final EIS in accordance with Privacy Act provisions. Please limit your comments to the time allotted, which will be 3 minutes. I will notify you when you have 30 seconds remaining and at the end of your allotted time. At that time, please conclude your comments so we can call on the next person. Of course, there is no obligation to use the entire time. Also, if you do not need to yield any remaining time to someone else. We will just move on to the next speaker when you have finished. If you have a comment that you believe would take longer than 3 minutes to give, please keep in mind you are welcome to submit written comments and there are no page limits or electronically on the project website. Once attendees have had a chance to provide an oral comment, and if there is time remaining, we will ask if anyone who has not spoken would like to make an oral comment. If no other individuals desire to speak and/or we have reached the end of the scheduled meeting time, we will verify that all participants who desire to speak have been heard. If everyone has had a chance to comment, I will adjourn the formal public oral comment portion of the hearing. If you would rather not speak here tonight, or if you would like to add something later to your oral comments, written comments will be accepted and will be given equal consideration. Written comments should be provided to one of the meeting attendees here tonight, sent to the address provided, or submitted electronically on the website. Please provide substantive comments. We ask that you focus your comments on the issues related to this proposal and draft EIS. As mentioned earlier, this is not a question and answer session. It is an opportunity for you to put on the record your concerns about the proposals that you want the decision makers to consider. The Department of the Air Force will not respond to comments during the hearing, but all comments received will become part of the record and will be considered in the final EIS. If you would like to submit an official comment for the public record after this hearing has ended, you may submit them via the project website or postal mail. To move through the testimony efficiently, I ask that you observe the following ground rules. Elected officials that chose to comment will be given an opportunity to speak first. Members of the public will then be called in the order in which they have signed up to speak. We will announce your name. Please stand and address your remarks to me so that I can hear your comments clearly and so that the court reporter can record your statement. Please speak clearly and slowly. State your full name and spell it out so we can record it correctly. If you are representing a group or someone other than yourself, please state that. We need this information to make sure that the court reporter gets an accurate record. Please do not provide any personal information in your comment that you would not want to see published in the final EIS. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to speak, and this applies to everyone: public officials, spokespersons, and individuals. You do not have to speak for the full 3 minutes. However, if you do choose to speak for the full 3 minutes, we'll be using a visual cue system to help you stay on track. There will be a timer on the screen, but when you have reached 1 minute left, we'll also show a green card. That's a reminder of the time that you have left to share your comments. When you have 30 seconds left, we'll show a yellow card, and that's just a gentle reminder to begin wrapping up. And finally, a red card will indicate the end of your allotted time. Following your presentation, I ask that you sit down so the next person can be called. Out of respect for others who would like to make comments, I ask that you please honor your 3 minutes and any request I might have for you to stop speaking if you go over the time limit. If you think you will have more comments than you can present in the time allotted, make the most important comments first. If you don't get a chance to voice all of your comments, you can and should submit them in writing. Any way you present your comment, it will be part of the official record for the final EIS. We are now ready to take oral comments. Please call on our first speaker.
Thank you, Judge Bowman. So I'm going to give you the names of the first 3 people. I'll go in that order, so you can either queue up here at the microphone, or if you'd like to have a seat here in the front row, I'll just save us a little bit of time. So the first 3 speakers are Jim Yarbrough, Tevin Schmidt, followed by Natalia Queller. And I will say my apologies now if I mispronounce your name. Thank you. Please go right ahead.
I support the no action alternative. No redevelopment or expansion of Space Launch Complex number 6 or number 4, and no increase in the number of Falcon rockets launched. 50 launches a year are already too many. More rocket launches from Vandenberg mean more out of control invasive surveillance and loss of privacy, and more chance of a war in space that will bring even more environmental misery to all of us on Earth and to future generations. These increasing launches are sold to us as necessary for national security, when what we need is a mutually verifiable agreement to reduce the number of satellites and the amount of surveillance in space. These SpaceX and US Space Force launches, and those of other countries and corporations, are making us all less safe. The satellite and weapons race in space is a sure sign of greed-driven and militaristic madness. I will continue to work to reduce the number of launches and to stop the surveillance and weapons race in space. You who work for SpaceX and Space Force, what will you do to stop this surveillance and weapons race in space? Please support the no action alternative. And my name is Jim, and my last name is Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough, for your comment. Next, we have Tevin Schmidt.
Good evening. My name is Tevin Schmidt. I am the watershed scientist for the Wish-Toyo-Chumash Foundation. The draft environmental impact statement fails to analyze the project's impacts on the environment, cultural resources, and local communities. Halama Beach is the site of an ancient Chumash village and is located just up coast from Humkok, the Western Gate. The Western Gate is one of the most culturally important sites for Chumash peoples, where the souls of the dead begin their voyage into the celestial world. The proposed project increases the number of evacuations of Halama Beach, infringing upon public access to this beach and access to a ceremonial site for Chumash peoples. SpaceX is notorious for underestimating and undercounting evacuations of public beaches. In 2023, Vandenberg officials committed to fewer than 12 closures of Halama Beach that year. However, by July 2023, the beach had been closed 15 times, with another 20 launches still planned for the rest of the year. In Boca Chica, SpaceX claimed that only 500 hours of beach closures would be necessary for general operations, But in 2020, the Fish and Wildlife Service calculated that there had been over 1,000 hours of closures in just 3 months. The Department of the Air Force must be transparent about these closures and infringement upon public beach access. The draft EIS completely lacks transparency on the project's impacts to water resources, increased vehicle traffic on federally listed species, sensitive habitats, launch debris, deluge water, and beach closures. The EIS falls short in its analysis of water use impacts on the communities that live on Vandenberg SFB. Vandenberg SFB was deemed vulnerable to water scarcity by the Government Accountability Office in 2019, but the EIS suggests that rocket launches that use up to 1.5 million gallons per launch will not impact these communities that primarily rely on state water, which is a notoriously unreliable source. Further, the legacy of missile and rocket testing at SLC-4 launch area has resulted in the mass buildup of TCE and perchlorate in the underlying groundwater aquifer. The Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board has determined that it will take at least 80 years for that water to be fully remediated. How is it a good idea to increase the rocket launch cadence at this site? The EIS fails in its analysis of impacts to endangered species that rely on the habitats of the Vandenberg SFB. Federally listed species like the western snowy plover and California least tern nest on the beaches of Vandenberg and the reproductive success could be impacted by these operations. Last year, at SpaceX's Boca Chica location, the launch debris from Super Heavy rocket launch test damaged 9 nests of snowy plover, Wilson's plover, and least tern. The EIS includes no analysis on impacts associated with launch debris from the Falcon Heavy rocket on nesting birds, all of which require similar beach nesting habitats as those found on Boca Chica. The Department of Air Force must take the concerns of the surrounding communities seriously and conduct a much more thorough analysis of project impacts on water resources, public beach access, cultural resources, federally listed species, and sensitive habitats. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, for your comment. And Mr. Schmidt, can you, because I didn't get it because you were speaking really fast at the beginning, can you restate the organization that you're with? All right, thank you.
Okay, Natalia is next, and then Allison Stillman, followed by Cynthia Grier.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Natalia Cuellar, and I'm a scientist with the Wichita Chumash Foundation. I appreciate your time and consideration today, and also sorry that I'm speaking to the back. But I'll get started. There are many deficiencies within the 200-page draft environmental impact statement intended for authorization to double the volume of rocket launches from the Vandenberg Space Force Base. However, I only have a short time with your attention, so I'll focus in on what matters above anything: the health of the community and the people that give it life. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency website, the average family of 4 uses about 400 gallons of water per day. A single Falcon Heavy launch uses about 1.5 million gallons of water per launch. This is the amount of water that could suffice for a family for over a decade. This isn't just about a single family, though. This is about being diligent in the allocation of vital resources and protecting viability. The Falcon 9 and Falcon and Heavy launches deplete both state and groundwater resources, as well as ensure an increase in concentration of pollutants already prevalent in our cities. This is not just one family, this is many, including the roughly estimated 3,767 individuals on base who are closest to these freshly emitted pollutants. This isn't just about business, we need to consider those that actually call our coastal cities home. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for your comment. Allison Stillman.
Hi, Allison Stillman, Allison. Last name is Stillman, Stillman. And I'm a resident up in Ojai, California. And I am calling for no action, the no action alternative. I have lived in Ojai for a very long time. I just bought a house 2 years ago that was built in 2012. And in the last year, I have, from the sonic booms that have gone off in Ojai, I now have a crack in the ceiling in every single room of my home. I've called Vandenberg 3 times. I've submitted emails. I've submitted photos. I've submitted the listing from before that showed no cracks. So there's no question of where those cracks came from. In addition to that, my heart, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. It's so frightening. I've had pictures fall off the walls of my home. My animals completely freak out at the sonic booms. And I had to laugh when I read this. With the increased launch cadence, the increased instances of ascent noise and sonic booms may increase human annoyance. And that's what you think my issues are, that my house is cracking and I'm having near heart attacks is a human annoyance. And then I read here, the below resources were dismissed from further analysis in the EIS. The protection of children from environmental health risks and safety risks. Wait a minute, you're not going to protect our children? You don't think they're worth protecting? The armed services are here to protect the citizens of the United States. So I am voting for a big fat no more action. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Stillman. So Cynthia Greer is next, followed by Michael Blaugrund, apologies there, and Leah Yonenton.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Greer.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just one moment. Thank you, Cynthia. Please go ahead.
Cynthia Greer, G-R-I-E-R. I'm going to start by first saying thank you for allowing us to have some time to speak. One of the first things that I'd like to speak to, I will be submitting online again a full analysis of my opinions. But the very first launch that ever happened, I live in Ojai, California. The very first launch that ever happened was right during the era when North Korea was threatening to bomb us. So my first reaction was that North Korea was bombing us. And I want to know, how do we distinguish between being bombed by an enemy and being bombed by the sonic boom from a launch? Every time that those launches happen again, I now have PTSD from this, because I feel like every time I hear it, I don't know. Is it a North Korean rocket? Is it an enemy rocket shooting at us? I don't know. My blood pressure has risen significantly over the last 2 years, and I've gone through thorough analysis, scanning, imagery, everything. There's nothing wrong that could be causing it. So I had tried to sign up for the notification from the Air Force or whoever that's supposed to come from. I've not received anything, but I do use a third-party app that notifies me. Sometimes if my phone's been turned down because of a meeting or something like this, then I don't hear it go off. But the last time, a few weeks ago, we had a really loud launch in Ojai. The cabinetry next to me in my office, it's a big white cabinet, started shaking as if it was going to fall over on me. So now I have that added to my PTSD. I'm worried when I'm sitting in my office working that thing's going to fall on me. And it's pretty well secured. It's it's not a lightweight thing that could easily, move around. Also, I do want to, if I can get to this here, I'm running out of time. Yahoo News, NASA has now determined that due to solar flares, basically, the satellites are falling to the Earth much faster than expected. So that, I'm going to say a big pause on everything, because health needs to be evaluated. The rockets or the satellites falling to the Earth there needs to be just some backtracking, reevaluated. Long-term health range, this is not an immediate thing. World Health Organization and other things have shown that this can cause long-term cognitive damage from the sonic booms.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. Next, Michael Blaugrund. Thank you.
My name is Michael Blaugrund, Blaugrund. I'm coming up today to speak with you about the possibility in the future of the launches being more than 100 as the program expands. And starting at 100 and expanding from there is a much higher threshold than from 50 as the years progress. Also, there's no indication in the report about where the sonic boom measurements were taken. It talks a lot about the Los Angeles area, but I don't see anything in the report about any location specifically in Ventura or Santa Barbara where an actual sonic boom measurement has been taken. So it's hard to imagine that the levels that were talked about in the report, which I'm thankful that you included those, may not be completely accurate, more on the downside of the real degree of sonic boom that we experience here in Ventura. Also the report, and I have to thank you for this, that at the first meeting we had, I think in January, it was discussed a lot about folks having cracks in their homes or situations that current people are expressing. I understand that, but there's no indication of anybody coming out and doing any type of a field work in the counties to find out exactly about these cracks. It was just stated that it is probably due to bad material, old material, or houses that are not maintained by their owners. But I can tell you that in the Ventura and Santa Barbara area, the cost of housing to own a home, people take care of their homes because it's very unfortunate that we would not be able to move and purchase another home in the area. So that part of the discussion is absolutely incorrect about care of the homes. And I think that some field study needs to be increased in these areas to get a really full picture of that. The other thing is that I wanted to say that I'm after the no action requirement, no action alternative. The main reason is that when rockets launch from Vandenberg, the exhaust from the engines comes down and settles over Ventura into the hill. And I can smell that exhaust fume coming over my house, and I can watch that cloud come down from the sky, come and settle above my house, and then drift into the mountain. And I think that that definitely has to be addressed because that's the most important environmental effect for the people of Ventura, which is not being addressed in your EIS. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blaugrund. Next, Leah Yanenton.
I support the no action alternative, no redevelopment or expansion of SCL-6, Space Launch Complex 6, and no increase in number of Falcon rockets launched from Vandenberg. And 50 launches a year is already too many. The EIS needs to be expanded to include likelihood of accidents. SpaceX is known for their exploding rockets. They're proud of this being part of their process. They don't mind when their rockets explode. So the environmental impact of anticipated accidents needs to be taken into effect. And the projection of long-term effects on our climate and climate change should be included in the EIS, including biosphere integrity on genetics and functional systems, on ocean acidification, and atmospheric aerosol loading, with attention to preventing irreversible change and harm and the cumulative environmental impact of global launches with atmospheric aerosol loading and particle pollution, and to quantify the boundaries of planetary boundaries and effect on planetary boundaries. Not just from launches, but also reentries and also from satellite disintegration. I heard that part of this policy, this hope, is to launch many, many satellites. Those satellites are going to disintegrate into our atmosphere and create particles. The EIS should include impact on reaching tipping points. We are facing a sixth mass extinction. I'm very upset. The EIS must include a mandatory cumulative assessment from other departments under the Department of Defense and their environmental impacts. and its long-term effects on livable habitats for all biological life. And that must include all departments, from the Navy and its takes on mammal life to the NNSA and nuclear radioactive waste, such as the nuclear waste at Port Hueneme nearby, even the Superfund sites that exist at military bases and nuclear waste, yes, at Hueneme, I said. The EIS should include quantitative studies of the link between space launches and its effects on geological activity, such as earthquakes. It should also look at the issue of space junk. Already 30,000 objects bigger than a softball are hurtling in low Earth orbit 10 times faster than bullets. Sonic booms are more than just an annoyance. I was on the Channel Islands late August when a Falcon 9 launched, and it penetrated my bones. I could not close my ears. It was terrifying. Imagine how smaller animals feel, and whales and sea mammals who have sensitive ears, sensitive reproduction cycles, or dolphins and their sonar may even be closer to the launch site. I want to quote the most decorated General Smedley Butler to be aware of military action driven by corporate greed.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Leslie Purcell, followed by Nicole Van Dam.
Are we taking pictures for some publication or?
Yeah, Ohio Valley News.
Oh, okay. Sorry, of course my phone won't participate like I wanted it to. Thank you. This is Leslie Purcell. I have some information that I wonder if the Vandenberg, the Space Force folks have. There's coming up on Thursday at the Coastal Commission, the U.S. Navy is applying for consistency, federal consistency for a large amount of activities that they're proposing for the next 7 years. And I'm wondering about cumulative effects of what Vandenberg and all these extras on space launches would do in conjunction with the Navy's proposed activities. And I'll just read a little bit about that. Proposed program activities, various types of air, surface, and underwater warfare involve widespread operation of crewed and uncrewed surface and submarine vessels and aircraft. Use of active sonar, explosive, and other munitions, high energy lasers, air guns, the deployment of training structures, underwater platforms, and fiber optic cables, and instrumentation on the seafloor. Temporary testing of small underwater energy generation devices, and other activities that would affect coastal resources. And they're talking about this offshore here, Point Mugu Sea Range, which is quite large, 36,000 square miles of ocean and airspace. And then the SoCal Range, which is south of that, going down to, I guess, the border of San Diego and Baja. And also they're now going to be including mid and Northern California, which is new. So there's a huge amount of activity that the Navy is proposing, and I'm wondering how that's going to coincide and be affected by the Vandenberg, the launches, and marine mammals, the air quality, the water quality, all the effects to habitat that this cumulatively will involve. It's really kind of staggering. So I appreciate your work, and just want to say we need to keep the ocean as clean as we can. The UN has an ocean conference going on right now, and they've been documenting how deteriorating the condition of the ocean is and how bad that is for our environment and for us humans as well as the creatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Nicole Van Dam.
Hello, Nicole Von Dam. I would like to say and echo the wonderful comments by Mr. Schmidt, and also that we do need more field studies. And there's a reason for that, because sometimes we can feel the sonic boom, and sometimes we can't. None of these people seem to have been asked, which launch was it, how often does it happen, is it every time? My husband had a theory that maybe it's because there's moisture in the air, he's an engineer. There is no way for SpaceX and the military to mitigate the effects of a sonic boom if they're not really studying who's feeling it, where they're feeling it, when they're feeling it, what the environmental conditions were. And so I think out of respect for all these citizens who have come here and been very open about their concerns and fears, that there should really be field studies about what's going on. And I think the water issue is a very serious issue. I think right now we're cutting all sorts of programs, and yet we're talking about spending more money here, and so that's a whole other can of worms. But also in terms of mitigation, I think we really need to look at the environmental impact, not through rose-colored glasses, but as Mr. Schmidt said, I can see what he was talking about anywhere in this, but he had statistics and data, and I think that should be reflected in the EIS. And so, at least for now, I am a no, we shouldn't do anymore. I'm also concerned about the heavy version, because apparently from what you guys said, that hasn't been launched yet. So if it hasn't been launched yet, how much worse are those sonic booms going to be? And these are the types of things that I think need to be discussed and studied. And I don't think we should have a blanket, we're going to do so many. If you guys are going to do it, I think there should actually be a third proposal. We continue as we are now, we do the field study. Depending on what the field studies show, then we go ahead and consider something else. But right now, I think it's premature. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Van Dam.
As previously mentioned, the hearing is scheduled to end at 8 p.m. We've heard from everyone who requested to speak and still have some time left. Please raise your hand if you have not already provided a verbal comment and would like to provide one this evening, and the meeting host will call on you. Yes, ma'am, you may come forward.
My name is Teresa Brady. I live in Moore Park, and I support the no action alternative. And I just wanted to say there are 42 miles of coastline that are affected. And I was asking somebody in the other room, they said the whole ocean is potentially where splashdowns could occur. And the whole coastline is where the blue whale migrates, which is an endangered species, from Mexico all the way to Alaska. And there are sea lion rookeries, and like, as somebody mentioned, nesting endangered birds on the beach in this area. And so I'm hoping that you will not, that you will support the no action alternative and not do any more launches. And I'll turn in my card.
Thank you, Ms. Brady.
Is there anyone else who has not spoken who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. While it appears that there are no more speakers at this time, we will continue until the end of the scheduled meeting at 8 p.m. to ensure everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Please be sure to include your name, affiliation, and address with your comment. Your address will not be included in the final EIS. To be considered in the final EIS, all substantive comments should be received or postmarked no later than July 7th, 2025. If you have chosen not to make a verbal comment during this hearing, there are several other ways to make comments on the draft EIS. You can submit written comments either by leaving your written comment with one of the representatives here at the hearing, submitting through the electronic comment form on the website, or through the Postal Service as indicated on the slides. Again, please be sure to include your name, affiliation, and email or physical mailing address with your comment. Your addresses will not be included in the final EIS. To be considered in the final EIS, all substantive comments should be received or postmarked by July 7th, 2025. Your comments will provide the decision maker, in this case, the Secretary of the Air Force, with information to assist in making a decision regarding the VSFB Falcon Launch Program. All substantive comments received, whether oral, written, or electronic, will be given full and equal consideration and will become part of the official administrative record. Your comments during the process provide the benefit of your knowledge of the local area and your concerns about the environmental impacts or analysis. Remember that the draft EIS is available on the website at www.vsfbfalconlauncheis.com or at one of the public libraries listed on the website. It appears that we have another individual. Is this Mark Timken? Did I pronounce that correct?
Good evening. So I missed some of the other comments, sorry. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in about the launches. I'm down here at Channel Islands Harbor area, Beach. And the launches I have noticed so far have already started to put cracks in my stucco. That might be a coincidence, but I do notice that with each rumble that comes in, it seems like an amazing coincidence. The other part that I would like to mention is that we like to go camping up at Halama Beach. And there's been many times for us and for plenty of our friends that live around here that also go up to Halama Beach, that in the middle of their trip, they've been told, sorry, you guys got to vacate now. There's going to be a launch. And boy, I can't tell you how many people I've heard just like in the dark about how to look it up and figure out, because there really hasn't been a lot of good information about how often actually Halama Beach State Park has been closed now due to these launches. And to double that capacity, you might as well close the park, seriously, because nobody can plan around that schedule with it. In closing, I'd just like to say, most companies, have a warehouse or have a giant area space that they conduct their business out of. Having something like this that is for private business reasons, for the most part, in our whole area is much like smoking in public, right? I mean, it's not really something that benefits all, but yet it is within all our area that I don't know what the green card means. That's about all I got. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Temkin.
Is there anyone else? As previously mentioned, we'll stay here until the close of this proceeding at 8 p.m.